All right, listen up, y'all.
Greetings, everybody. This is Mr. Abdullah, your host and educator, with another episode of All Things Education Official, where we give you information about education from a black male educator perspective. Today, I'm going to talk about something that was brought to me, and we had a little discussion when me and one of my colleagues, one of my peers, we discussed the importance of a principal in your school. We also talked about, in particular, our particular circumstances. We had worked in an all-male educating environment, and the question came up: how important is a principal to an all-male environment? And I said, well, we need to really expound on that and say, how important is a principal in a school, period? And in doing the research, this, a lot of times we speak as educators, we talk about things that we know. We talk about things that we've lived, the experiences that we've had with administrators, colleagues, students, parents, the whole gambit. But for this one, I thought it'd only be fair that I discuss the data, discuss the research, and try to inform parents not only how important a principal is, but the things that you might want to do in the event that you have a principal who does not measure up to the standard that is necessary for your child to be successful. So to get that started, let's go into one of the individuals that I highly respect, who will be highlighted as educator, one of the educated spotlight. His name is Mr. Baruti Kafele. He is a principal out of New Jersey, and I think you need to hear what he says is important about a principal.
A principal is a visionary. Principal already sees the success of a school, of his or her school, before embarking on the job. A good principal also has a sense of purpose for the role. So there's a definition that accompanies that role. What is your purpose, principal? Why do you do this? Why do you wake up in the morning and report to that school? And that's that purpose. And then that leadership identity. When I ask the question all the time of principals, who are you? What are you about? What drives you? What drives what you say? What drives what you do? So certainly there are other qualities and characteristics of a principal, but I often root them in that leadership identity, that purpose, that mission, and that sense of vision that a leader should have.
As you can see, he gives a very, very quick breakdown of the things that are needed to be a successful principal. And I like to add some things to that. He talked about, knowing why you're getting up and having a purpose. And I do agree with that 110%. If you don't have a purpose, and your purpose should be rooted in the development of not only the children, not only the teachers, but of the families that these children come out, the communities in which they come out of. And I think a lot of people forget that. They move up the ranks from maybe, aide to teacher coach, to assistant principal to principal, assistant superintendent. And along the way, a lot of our administrators lose that understanding that you are not just trying to change the academic life of children. You're attempting to change the community in which that child lives through that child. And that's extremely important. Reading a couple of articles I have here out of wallacefoundation.org. How Principals Affect Students in Schools, a systematic synthesis of 2 decades of research. I'm just going to read the first title caption. An effective principal's impact is stronger and broader than previously thought, making it difficult to envision a high return on investment in K-12 education than the cultivation of high-quality school leadership, according to this research. In other words, it's more than what we think. It's more than what we see. And it's difficult to see how a school can move forward without a good principal. And one of the things it said, a principal of 75th percentile of effectiveness yields an increase in student learning and reading and math of about 3 months. So if you have a principal who is in the 75th percentile of effectiveness, then that means that those students in that school can increase their learning by what they would have learned in a 3-month period. And that's very, very important. Moving forward, if you talk about right here, you got the Texas A&M University School of Education and Human Development. They had an article, How Principals Affect Teacher and Student Outcomes. That's extremely important. Teachers are a primary pathway through which principals can affect student learning. Bartonen's prior research shows that ineffective leadership or lack of administrative support is one of the top reasons teachers decide to leave. And that's so important. We need to understand that if teachers you can have a lot of good teachers who have well-meaning intentions and they have the skills to give their students all that they need to succeed. But if you have a piss poor principal or a principal with low social skills who have a myriad of things that are going against them, that teacher will leave. They will try to stick it out. I've been there. I've seen it. I've done it. We try to stick it out, but ultimately you can't keep going to work miserable trying to do good work. It just doesn't work. It said Barton describes principals as middle managers in the school district bureaucracy that leave their positions quite frequently resulting in high turnover. I need you to see this. Parents, this is extremely important. If your child goes to a school in which the teachers are leaving every year you're being introduced to new staff, you may want to get the hell out of that school, because from what is being obviously presented, it's a toxic work environment. With that being said, we need to go into the 10 signs of a toxic school culture. And we need to be very, very clear. The principal is directly responsible for the school culture. The first warning signs: 1, no clear sense of purpose. 2, hostile relations among staff, students, and parents. We've all seen that. 3, an emphasis on rules over people or mission. I got to stop right there. I remember I was told by a principal in a neighboring state. He said, "Do you follow the rules at your school?" Not really knowing him, I said, "Yeah, we follow the rules." He said, "Then your school is failing, because public education is designed to fail. And if you're not breaking at least one rule a day, you've just told me that your school is following a failing protocol, which means your children are failing." That blew my mind. Since number 4, an absence of honest dialogue. Teachers and principals need to be able to have a conversation about what's working, what's not working. And a lot of times that's not happening. Number 5, more self-preservation and collaboration. CYA, cover your ass. If that's going on at the school, school's not working. 6, active back channels over formal lines of communication. We all know what that means. That means we have the way we talk about the meeting after the meeting. We get the real information after the meeting. That's a back channel. 7, punishment instead of recognition, and rewards and behavior motivated by the avoidance of punishment. So you have teachers, and as I've said in previous videos, we're a bunch of kids sometimes, and you have teachers that are just doing the job so they don't have to hear the principal's mouth. They're not doing it because they believe in it. They're not doing it because they know that kids are going to benefit. They're doing it because they don't want to hear the principal tell them, "You got a write-up coming. We have to meet. You need to go downtown to talk to HR." That's not what they want to hear. 8, a palpable lack of safety. If people are afraid to speak up, as it says here, they can't address problems head on. And a lot of times when the principal says, "Does everyone understand? Are there any questions?" there'll be no hands, because principals don't understand that when there are no questions about something that you told your staff that's extremely important, that's a problem. 9, a small group who controls the conversation. Typically, that's your administrator and their cronies. That could be another VP, that could be a teacher or coach, it could be an aide, it could be anybody. But if they have an echo chamber that reverberates and just repeats what they say, you're not going to be heard. And finally, an absence of risk taking. If you're not taking risks, trying to get your children in your building to learn better, learn in different ways, then you've just told me you've submitted to the status quo, which means your children in your school are at best being mediocre. I think it's very, very important that we always understand that the principal is the lead. I did another video with saying who actually runs the school, but the principal and vice principals, they lead the school. And whatever culture that they set up, that culture will reverberate. And I want you to also know this. This is something for parents. This is extremely important. If your school, the school that your child is attending, has been failing for a number of years, and it has the same principle, it's high time you get the hell out of there, because that child is not going to benefit. There may be some social benefits, but academic there will not be, because that principal is the standard for that school's success. Once again, that principal is the standard for that school's success. And one final LinkedIn article, they had 10 poor leadership attributes. I'm going to go through them quickly. 1, narrow-minded. 2, they play safe. 3, they're closed-minded. 4, they're inconsistent. 5, unreliability. 6, power. 7, trust, respect, 8, compassion, and 9, learning CPD, and 10, relationships. I'm going to leave the article in the description so you can have access to it. It's called Poor Leadership Attributes, written by Leonardo Casillas. And I think that you need to understand what's going on in your schools. Read these articles. See, do you see any of these things going on? And there, if they are, you need to really consider having a conversation with other school leaders to ask. And you don't have to say which school. Say, hey, what do you think about this going on? Would you do that in your school? If you come to a consensus of no, then maybe your child should not be there. Ultimately, you are the consumer. Your child is the ultimate consumer because they will take those lessons, they will take those messages that they got out of that school into the world. And if they're not getting anything that's appropriate, they're not getting anything that's beneficial, they will be the losers in the long run. Once again, this is Mr. Abdullah with another episode of All Things Education Official, where we give you the perspective of education from a black male's perspective. Once again, you are dismissed.
Yeah! You are all expurgated. You are dismissed.